Hi, I'm Cassie Zamparini and I'm a product manager at OpenCraft.
Hi, I'm Mahnoor and I'm a product manager at Edly. We did a workshop on product proposal review process. Hope you enjoy it. Can we have some volunteers here? All right. So we have set some key goals for this workshop, right? And we want to start with identifying areas where you're not quite sure or areas that sometimes frustrate you about the product proposal review process. We know that this process has evolved organically over time, and like any other organic thing, it has grown some weed. So we want to make sure that we keep this process as optimized and as efficient as we can, so that all the great ideas that we get, we should be able to execute them seamlessly, right? And the ones who are submitting those ideas, they should feel motivated throughout the entire process when their idea gets implemented. Second, we want to understand real experiences from all roles. So whether you are a submitter, coordinator, reviewer, right? Or really just someone who's curious, we want to understand from you guys what frustrates you through the process. Where do you think we could improve? Where do you think we could speed up or make this entire process more efficient? Then, once we have identified those pain points and those friction points, we will co-create and brainstorm some ideas together to improve that process to fill those gaps. And lastly, when we walk out of this room today, we're going to walk out with actionable, tangible items that eventually will get implemented to make this process smoother. All right, show of hands. Have you ever used or have you ever gone through the product proposal review process? Perfect. How many of you have submitted a proposal before? How many of us have reviewed a proposal? Perfect. Sounds like we've got a great combination of everyone. How many of us have coordinated a proposal before? Oh, sounds good. All right. So in the next step, we'll deep dive into what the process is, and we'll understand it step by step throughout the journey. But before we do that, we'll briefly walk through how Firefox does it. And the very obvious reason I picked Firefox here is because it's one of the most successful open source communities and product. So their process is mostly similar to ours, with just minor tweakings. So it starts with a GitHub issue that follows a structured template, and the template guides the submitter to add basically things that are supposed to be there, right? So all to follow like a standardized process. Once a GitHub issue is raised, it is triaged by maintainers and tagged for visibility. So they check whether the issue is duplicated or not, whether it needs more clarity, whether it's labeled correctly or not. Once that's done, then the public discussion starts and everything happens within the same GitHub issue, right? After enough clarity is reached on that issue feature request, the contributors submit PRs after the feedback, and that PR is also linked to the same issue. So what we need to see here is that all the conversation is happening in one place, and everything that is happening beyond GitHub issue, it's also linked to the same issue. After the PRs, they are reviewed and checked by the reviewers to see that the code that is implemented is following all the standard processes. And lastly, the outcomes that happen, if the PR was merged, if it was rejected, or whatever was implemented, it is also logged in the same issue. So any future contributors would have complete visibility of what all happened with that feature request or product request. Make sense? All right, great. So if we have no questions further, now we'll understand our current process. I'll walk you guys through step by step on each part of the journey, and we'll tell you what exactly happens there. And this is kind of important because it's going to lay the foundation for the rest of the workshop. So we'll walk through the process, and I would like all of you to think whether it makes sense, whether it doesn't make sense. Do you like this part of the process or do you not like this part of the process? So that later, when we get your feedback, you have all the substance in your head. Okay. Why is this side blank? Yeah, go here. Okay. So it all starts with an idea, right? And this is the most exciting part of the entire process. You get that idea, it could be from a bug that bothers you a lot, or it could strike from a conversation with a potential user or a potential client, right? So you get the idea, and then you decide to submit that idea to the broader community in order to get it implemented. And for that, there are two templates that you can create your proposal in. The first one is when you know your idea and you also know exactly how you want to solve it. So you have the solution and you have the idea. In that case, you pick template one. In case you have the idea or the problem that you want to solve, but you're not quite sure of how you want to solve that problem. In that case, you're going to pick template number two, where the problem is identified, but the solution part requires some discovery, right? And once you have picked the template that you want to choose, you will draft the proposal. This is where all the ideas, all the thing that is in your head, it gets translated into a structured document. Here, the main aspects of those documents include overview of the problem, what are you solving, what are the use cases of those problems, what is the solution that you're proposing, are there any other approaches that you might have considered, have you done any competitive research, are there any other players in the market who have solved the same problem, if yes, how did they solve it, and what is your implementation plan? Then what is your plan for long-term ownership, maintenance, who is going to own it in the long term? Are there any open questions for rollout, releases, or for community, right? So all things related to your idea, whether it's the problem statement, the solution part, any questions you're not very clear about, you write them in your document. And these are like the sections of the templates that we have there to guide you through the process. Once this document is done, now you create a GitHub issue. The reason we want to create a GitHub issue is for traceability, because this issue will go through different stages, and it gives visibility to the entire community of what the current stage is. Make sense? Perfect. So for GitHub issue, it's like, I would like to think of you as a companion to this big document. This is the big document, the detailed one, and the GitHub issue is like a small little companion who would just say that, oh, okay, this is in progress. Oh, this is blocked. Oh, this needs more data, right? So it should have an abstract. It should have linked to the proposal, and context, background, scope, approach, the value that you want to create, the impact that it will have. Well, what would be the milestones or epics? What would be the release it would be part of? What's the timeline that you have in mind? Who is it being proposed by? And any additional info that you would like to share. Not all of these are mandatory, but it would be good to have all of these. Make sense? So this is where, at step 4, this is where your idea or your proposal becomes public, right? And now it will become part of the broader conversation when you share it with the rest of the community, and you share it on product working group Slack channel. I hope you're all part of it, right? Perfect. So now you share your proposal with everyone, and you go like, hey, there's this idea that I had in mind, and I did some groundwork. I identified the problem. I drafted this document, and now I would appreciate if all of you could, just give it a review and see if I'm missing something, if anyone has thoughts, right? All the discussion happens within the same document that was drafted. So now there is a lot of conversation around it, and that's why you need to find a coordinator. A coordinator is someone who will make sure that your proposal is moving forward and not just staying afloat somewhere, right? And who can be the project coordinator? It could be a member from the community, any member from the community. It could be from any organization or your own organization, someone from product working group, or it can just be you, right? So you can also decide to manage your product proposal. In that case, you would need to check that all the comments that are being left by community members, they're answered, and that the proposal is moving forward. Make sense? Okay. Cassie, do you want to do rest of the steps?
Okay, so now that a coordinator has been found, the next step is to review the proposal. The product coordinator needs to first review the product proposal to ensure, and the GitHub issue to ensure that everything is complete and clear. And then the product coordinator needs to find reviewers through Slack. In other ways, if they have anyone in mind, they can contact them directly. It's up to the product coordinator. Also good to find someone maybe that has that expertise that relates to the product proposal. The product coordinator needs to coordinate the review process. So they need to ensure that there's open lines of communication, that things are actually getting reviewed, timelines are set, etc., etc., etc. So once it's been reviewed, is two possible outcomes. The proposal is accepted. This is the smoothest outcome. The proposal is accepted without any changes. If not, if changes are required, it goes back to the submitter, and the submitter needs to incorporate those changes and then get it reviewed again. So there needs to be an open line of communication between the product coordinator and the submitter. Okay, so once that is done, we have the proposal is approved or the proposal is rejected. Now, just because a proposal is rejected doesn't mean it might not be accepted in the future. You could incorporate feedback and submit it at a later time. It's not the end of the road for this. If it's approved, it can then be moved to the backlog, GitHub, and it says proposal is resourced or proposal is not resourced. So proposal is resourced basically means it has a team behind it, it has funding, and then it can move to the backlog and it can be indicated in the backlog as resourced. And that means that it can move on to the design development phase. If it's not resourced, it's added to the backlog as that. It doesn't mean that the product is not going to be developed and designed. It just means that we're waiting on someone to help move it forward. If it's eventually moved forward, it goes into the design development phase. And that's when we create the designs, we develop, and a key thing here is to communicate with the product core working group during the development phase. And also to update, if things change, to update the proposal with those changes on the GitHub issue and on the product proposal. So that's basically the review process as it stands. I'm going to hand over to Mahnoor, and then we are going to get to some interaction steps. Oh no, this is next. Sorry.
Yeah, so we want to share some insights about what happened last year with all the proposals that we got. We received around 50 proposals last year, and 34% of those proposals were accepted. Out of them, 22% of those proposals got implemented, and 48% of those proposals that we got are currently in review or hold. And the average time to either get an approval or abandonment of those proposals that we got is around 84 days. We would ideally want to minimize the number of days, and which is why we're all here. So now, this is the most exciting part, right? This is where it all starts. We need to bring 84 days to something lower, and that's why we need your help here. So we have, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. How do you measure the approval proposals and the reject proposals for the stage in GitHub? Is that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a status on GitHub.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So the question is, how do we mark a proposal as approved or rejected? And that's all done within GitHub. So as I said, that when you write a proposal, you write a document, and then you also raise a GitHub issue, and that GitHub issue is tracked through all of these stages, whether it's in review, whether it's on hold, approved, rejected. Okay.
Rejected is kind of a strong word. Sometimes a proposal does not implemented because it's the same idea as a proposal that is accepted. Sometimes it is rejected because we decide collectively that the platform wants to move into a different direction. So rejected doesn't always just mean like the entire community just said, thumbs down, your idea is bad. It's often the case that it's something like a duplicate, or the implementation idea was one that was like, well, we wouldn't want this type of code in the platform from a technical perspective. Or we want this to be a plugin. You don't need a product proposal for making your own XBlock. So there's a lot of different reasons.
Thank you, Serena, for adding more context to those statuses. All right. So moving on to next part of this workshop, we have the entire process pasted on that wall. I would want you guys, one by one, to walk through that wall and see how you feel about each of the steps. So for any step that is like super clear, good to go, I love this part of the process, right? You paste a green sticky there, right? And for parts where you're like, maybe something could be different. Maybe it could be something else. Or maybe I'm just not sure of how this works or how it's needed, right? For those part of the process, paste a yellow sticky note. And for parts of the process that frustrate you, where you go like, I hate this part, right? For those part of the process, you paste a red sticky note. And we don't have smileys? Yeah, we do. We do. Okay, perfect. We also have emoji stickers. So ideally, I would also want you guys to paste those emojis on those posters, right? So after this exercise, we would actually get kind of like a heat map of your emotions throughout the process. So we would identify the phases that you like the most, that are the smoothest, and the ones that have most friction, right?
Yeah, and these sticky notes, feel free to write your comments on the sticky notes as well. It's also helpful for us to know, and also helpful for other people to know, okay, this person is confused about this, and then perhaps add to it with a emoji. So the more we get on maybe an issue, the more we know, okay, this is an issue within the community. Not to say that also, if you think a step can be simplified, write that down. If you think the whole process can be simplified, indicate that. So we need as much feedback as possible, as many ideas as possible, and yeah. So let's get to it. So we're going to do a little creativity warm-up. So I want everyone to stand up. And close your eyes. You can trust me, I promise. No, don't do that. I am placing a magical object in your hands, an invisible object. Feel it. Is it big as a planet? Is it light as mist? Is it small? Is it fluffy? What is it? Is it hot? Is it cold? What does it do? Where does it come from? Okay, think a little bit more. All right, use your imaginations. There's no right or wrong answers. Just let your imagination go wild. It can be weird, it can be wonderful. All right, open your eyes. Okay. Who is brave enough to share what they were holding? Cool. Okay, now you're probably wondering why we did that. Because that's what creativity is. It's making something out of nothing. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to solution. So I think we're just going to be using this. Okay. Which doesn't, there we go. So what we're doing next is, we're calling it the solution station rotation. everyone, if you can separate into how many stations do we have? How many do we have? 6. We have 5. So separate into groups of, what did we say? 4. Separate. Okay, so if you can separate into 4 to 5, 4 to 5, and then we've put these stations around here at the front. So it's going to be a little bit of a squish. You can actually, if you prefer, we can move those 2 stations to the back. So people can congregate around there. Once again, come and use these wonderful bits of stationery. And what you're going to do now, I'm going to keep this up as a reference. Sorry, our screen isn't working anymore. We're going to basically read the pain point as you get to the station. And then you're going to add an idea. Sketch, write, whatever you want to do, add bad drawings. They're really welcome. And then and there's also no wrong ideas. Like if you just let your imagination go wild, you'll have 5 minutes, you'll hear the bell ring, and then you'll move to the next station. Sort of like speed dating. Rotate clockwise, and at the new station, this is important, read what the previous person or previous group has written, either build on their idea or add a new idea. So, and then once we're finished, we'll let you guys know, and then you'll hopefully by that stage be back to your first station. Yeah, and then at the station, what you're going to do, your first station, you're going to read through everyone's ideas and pick 1 or 2 and then present them to the group, and we'll vote on those. All right, so let's get started. So if everyone can you can stay in your groups and or you can sit down, it's up to you, but just choose your group leader and they can present the ideas that stood out. Can each person read out the question first and then submit their ideas? Well, tell us your ideas. If you want, we can start. Okay, great. Yeah. Can you, Sanja? Do you want to? Yeah, we should pass around the mic.
Thank you. Okay. Hello, hello.
Hi, guys.
How are you? Okay, so we have one of the biggest challenges we face as an open source community is getting more people to respond to questions, requests, and proposals across our forums, Slack channels, and working groups. So during our brainstorming, there were several key ideas that came up. So we categorize it, and then first I will let you know which ones we selected. So there is a specific for organization and structure ideas. The answers we received were like to form small groups, like 4-9 people, focus on stable teams that answer to those specific questions. Have a default coordinator. Ideally, the person who raises the proposal becomes the coordinator unless someone else steps in. Create centralized hubs within working groups. Accelerate the adoption of new proposals, but enabling faster feedback cycles and prototype validation. But we saw there was another question regarding that. So, make it clear from the beginning what a proposal or request still needs: feedback, review, or approval. And define and communicate clear expectations regarding the responses. I agree totally on that. For example, if you tag someone and you expect feedback, you should say, okay, I would love to have your feedback in 2 weeks. So at least you have a timeline. Otherwise, you will let the question open. Then we divided in mechanisms and processes. So have responsible individuals to ensure follow-up, maintain a list of experts who can be tagged. That's something we align together, that we should know who is good at what. Instead of tagging everyone, just know who is good, for example, for this specific process. Ensure working groups have forums and control spaces to centralize discussions, add how to get started section to make it easier to find relevant information, and create public posts or temporary forums to collect frequently discussed topics and keep it active with regular meetings. Then we have motivation and incentives, which is offer credits or public recognition for each response. implement a point reputation system, and link participation in reviews or answering questions to have additional resources for those proposals or benefits. So let's say if you were the one that was leading a discussion, then you should be the one that could be rewarded after the proposal is assigned. And finally, culture and best practices. So move away from firefighting model where people only respond to urgent issues. Promote a culture where responding is part of the regular workflow, and know the interests and expertise of the members to direct questions more effectively. Finally, and concrete actions, create spaces that give visibility to pending needs, like a visual board or something, and block time specifically to answer questions and participate actively.
So in our group, just sort of in our organic discussions, I think we agree with a lot of what you brought up. Having the default coordinator being the product proposer, I think makes a lot of sense. We also just talked about engagement. The product core working group doesn't have very many people attend it. And over half of the product proposals are currently coordinated or pushed forward by Axum, which means we're overloaded and we often don't have the same you might have a timeline. I think Felipe was talking about this. We have a client, they will give us funding, but the funding has to come before the end of the year. I don't know that. It's not my priority. So if Felipe was coordinating that proposal and had some of the things you were talking about, giving a 2-week deadline, having a list of people who are like qualified reviewers in different areas, having the lazy consensus of like, hey, if nobody responds in these 2 weeks, I guess this product proposal is proposed. We agree with a lot of those. So many same themes came up. The question on this posted is, how do we do a better job of involving all stakeholders across different platforms? One here that we talked about a lot was including a video in the proposal. I think that's a great idea, especially if you're, say, in a time zone where you can attend the product core working group. We could watch that video in the product core working group. One thing that's here has a lot of votes, says trying to unify things in one channel. A lot of that time just becomes hard because different tools are better at different things. Like Confluence, GitHub gives us tracking, but Confluence gives us inline comments. And so they're just different properties that do different things. And so I think that's something that we can all keep thinking about. How can we do some recaps? How can we get more people involved? It seems like there's OpenCraft, Axum, EduNext are pretty regularly present at the product core working group. How can we get your organizations involved and your organization's perspectives? And sure, like it's not possible for like all the Axum engineers to attend the product core working group, but I often get their input before I go to the product core working group so that I can represent the concerns of more than just me. So just how can we deepen involvement and get everybody kind of on board, because we have a bottleneck right now, and it really is the number of people who attend the product core working group.
We're going over our sections? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had, how do we slim down the process for small changes? We had a few different ideas here. We think that there should probably be a separate process for small changes, that it shouldn't go through the full rigmarole of what this process is. We think this process is for the big product facing changes that really need a lot of alignment. But for something like, okay, what do we do to change the color of this button or something, it gets a little bit unwieldy. So we think there should be something of a smaller process for that. You have like one product reviewer, one code reviewer. They look at it, they verify it is a small change. And if it isn't, then they kick them back to the product proposal process. But if it is, then they're enough to go ahead and approve that process. And we talked about what would the criteria be for something being a small change. Some really good ideas here were like easily reversible. If a change is easily reversible, it's a pretty good indicator that it's a small change. If it's a bug fix, if it's already something that's been triaged as a critical or small issue, then that would be a good example of something that if there was a pull request for it, we would say that's small. And yeah, I think that's the majority of the content there.
Thank you. It's a good example of how we should always meet people halfway, right? All right. So we looked at the question of how do we make the proposal documents more clear? That's always a huge issue. People don't want to read things, by the way, that aren't clear, and they don't understand them well, and therefore you don't get very good results. So we've selected a lot of great ideas here, by the way, of the various teams that came around. We were really happy to see everything when we came back at the end. One thing that really jumped out was a TLDR. This is something that I do with a lot of other documentation, and I tell people I work with to do this. Sometimes that's all people are going to read, especially people who are very busy and don't particularly have time. So if we put a TLDR at the top, like here is a 1-paragraph summary of what this is, not only are people who don't have the time going to read only that, but people who are going to read the whole thing will have that background. It'll be a lot more clear after that. Keynotes as well as part of that. Another one that got a lot of support here was the design. Now, there is actually a trend to reduce documentation in general. Some companies have eliminated documentation entirely. I'm not saying that we have to do that, but they've replaced documentation with designs that are commented on. So by including more design in a proposal, and there's not always going to be design at the proposal stage, but if there is, we should probably lean a lot more on the design. We have a couple of other ideas here that are really lumped into the automation category. Obviously, everybody's talking about AI all the time. We can use AI in here too to help you author the proposal and make it clear, providing recommendations throughout the way. Something related to that is potentially a modular proposal builder, which will guide you through the process. I want to do this, this, and this. Well, I'll insert it here in something like a type form. It'll spit it out. It'll make a clear proposal that's easy to read. And finally, this was a little bit controversial, but we started anyway. Video explanations. Somebody put a sticky on it. I actually kind of loved it. This says not convenient. But there are some people who do like to use video. So we don't know if that should necessarily be required. But if you want to use it, it could make a proposal a lot clearer to include some video.
Hi, everyone. We looked at how do we find resourcing for proposals that are accepted but not resourced. This is a bit of a tough one. As everyone knows, it's difficult enough to find time and money for proposals. Most of the suggestions followed the same thread around trying to find more money and resources. One idea we had was just to make sure that the proposal is really solving a problem for institutions and the clients that we work with. And if it is, ideally trying to split the proposal among multiple institutions so everyone can be contributing a little bit of their time and budget towards it. And then one interesting idea was to engage the community through something like a hackathon, where we can focus on one specific proposal, pool community resources, and attack it that way. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I just also want to give some context to this. If we think back 3 years ago, we didn't have a product review process. We didn't have any of this. So the fact that we had 50 proposals submitted last year, I think we all need to give ourselves a pat on the back. I think it's amazing how far we've come, and it's just going to get better and better. So give yourself all a round of applause. I think we've made great strides. So thank you for participating today. We really, really appreciate it. I think there's a lot of feedback. And what we're going to do now, what our action steps are, we'll analyze the feedback that we've gathered here today. And then we'll use these insights to amend the current process and then put it out to review to the wider community, because obviously many people haven't been able to join us at the conference. And then we'll finalize the process in that way. So we want to integrate the steps quickly and efficiently, and then get you all to review, and then we'll make comments asynchronously, or we'll probably join the product working group at some, presented there. We'll just keep everyone in the loop, and yeah. So this was great. Thank you, everyone. Are there any questions? Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you.